Gen Ed textbooks are a key way students learn about the subjects they are studying. But in EAP, textbooks don't have the same language students encounter in their Gen Ed courses. What's the solution? Hello, everyone. I'm Baiba Sedriks, and I'm happy to present an answer for you all today. Repurposing University Textbooks to Teach EAP, an authentic approach. Here's the poster I created for all of you joining TexLER this October. As you can see, I will briefly discuss a cutting-edge approach to curriculum design and teaching called ARC, which was created by two former colleagues at the University of Kansas and further developed by me as an EAP coordinator. I will also discuss how to use authentic university materials using 5 textbook design features. This quote underscores how international students need to use English to be successful at a university. Students need to access, understand, articulate, and critically analyze relationships among a wide variety of content areas. I would add not just conceptual relationships, but concepts themselves. ARC stands for Accessing, Understanding, Recreating, and Critically Discussing Academic Content. These are all activities directly related to learning undergraduate content in English and demonstrating what was learned. EAP is successful when students can do two things: use English to learn and use English to demonstrate what they learned. This is why sustained engagement is a guiding principle. Through sustained engagement with a text, students can develop the type of fluency needed to construct meaning of complex ideas that span long chapters. By using English over several weeks to engage with ideas and relationships in a single textbook chapter, the more skilled students become at using the target language. I teach the concept of ARC explicitly to my students, and I refer to it throughout the course as I emphasize how to ARC. Here's an excerpt from a companion workbook I wrote to help my students understand how to ARC from the very beginning. I'm sure many of these activities are very familiar to you. Using authentic materials is crucial. Here are examples of a few of the textbooks I have used in my own EAP classes. The ones on the left are taken from an American Studies course and were used in an upper level class. The anthology on the right was created in-house and includes introductory textbook chapters from communication studies, biology, economics, psychology, and Western Civ. Now remember, the content of the anthology and the American Studies text is not the focus. The repurposing of the material to focus on language and how to learn is what distinguishes our discipline from other university instructors. So the content from each discipline simply serves as examples we can use to teach students how to learn university level material in English. Now, here is the crux of my presentation. There are several, 5 in fact, relevant typical textbook design features that can be repurposed. They are hierarchical organization, visual representations, highlighting techniques, jargon, and accompanying academic words, and discipline-specific way content is presented. Let's start with hierarchy. If you think about a book, it's divided into parts, and those parts are into chapters, and then sections, subsections, paragraphs, sentences. You can go all the way down to the word level. How can we use this, though, to show students how to learn in English? Well, hierarchy helps students identify relevant topics and discuss relationships among these topics. Let's take a closer look using an example of hierarchy at the level of a chapter, Latinos and American Film. You can use hierarchical organization to ask questions such as, when students and scholars of American studies discuss Latinos in film, what are 3 important topics? You could help students think critically about the chapter by pointing out key phrases in sections, or having students comment on the sections of the chapter, for example, from World War II and after, the Good Neighbor Policy, to the 1950s to 70s, back to business as usual? This visual comes from a communication studies chapter. It talks about a model of public speaking. While the model is intended to instruct a student on how public speaking works, I have repurposed it to teach students how to learn English. One way is to have students describe the visual. They could use phrases such as at the top of the figure, or in the middle of the model, or the arrows indicate. Once students are familiar with the model, they could recreate it or describe it in a paragraph, which it would include key terms. Pictures are natural for us language instructors because they generate so much language, and textbooks, well, they're visual by nature. When working with visuals, it becomes easier to explain terms. For example, take a look at this chapter. It's on gender and women, and the expression gendered expectations and the words feminism and vamp appear. Associated with these highlighted terms is a photograph of Theda Bara, whose image gives one the opportunity to connect the picture to the text. It's usually easy to identify major concepts through a variety of highlighting techniques. Take a closer look at this slide. There's boldface font, bullet points, italicized text, and even the use of margins to highlight key information. Focusing on the subsection called Context for Human Communication, you can have students ask and answer, what do I need to know about context of human communication? Or you could have a critical discussion and ask students to contrast two or three of the five kinds of communication. Jargon is often highlighted as well, and this helps students easily identify it. This picture comes from an economics chapter. Looking at this section of the book, students can quickly ask and answer questions such as, what's a key concept for economists when they discuss government printing more money and prices going up? This question contextualizes the jargon. The word inflation appears in boldface in the text, and then it's repeated again in the margin where it's defined. So the concept is easy to access, but students also need to understand it and recreate it. So they'll need to paraphrase the textbook definition and perhaps give an example. To go beyond the textbook, students can talk about inflation in their home country. There are various ways to teach academic vocabulary. Show students where the word is in the text. Have the students read the sentences that surround the target word and ask critical questions centering around the meaning and the use of this word. The approach a discipline takes and the nature of the subject matter will determine how the content is portrayed. For example, history texts rely heavily on maps, chronologies, and primary documents, while economics relies on listing principles of the discipline. The point is, each discipline approaches their topic from their own perspective. Let's take this example from a biology text. When biologists discuss life, or at least in this textbook, they think of life in terms of levels. They discuss it from smaller life forms grouping together to create larger life forms. After discussing this visual, I may have my students discover for themselves how biologists use English to explain the levels of life. They could look for key words in the text and find verbs and phrases that go with those key words, such as is organized into and consists of. Maybe you're thinking, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a historian, and I'm certainly not an economist. What can you do if you come across a concept in the materials that is new for you? Well, you can teach question formation. The point is not to answer the question, but to learn how to formulate questions. Academic English is acquired when students ARC materials. To help them do this, I repurpose the pedagogical design of university materials. Students can quickly identify key concepts and practice using English to elaborate on them. ARC supports a multimodal perspective, a genre approach, language learning, and study skills. It slightly shifts our focus from language teacher to one who teaches students how to learn in English. Thank you everyone for taking time to listen to this presentation. I look forward to meeting you in the Q&A next Saturday. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me via email. You may also be interested in reading more about the rationale behind this EAP approach and how it was developed and implemented. If so, please take a look at the references. I do hope you feel encouraged to try using an authentic textbook in your next English language class. Take care and stay safe.